Have you ever noticed how modern grocery stores seem full and yet somehow limited? We see the same familiar vegetables over and over again. Carrots, broccoli, lettuce, potatoes. Useful, yes, but only a tiny slice of what people once grew and ate. Long ago, home gardens were filled with strange, hearty, deeply nourishing vegetables that today many people have never even heard of. Some were loved for their flavor, some for how easy they were to grow, and some because they helped families get through hard seasons. Today on Natural Earth Living, we're taking a walk back through the garden rows of the past to explore a few unusual vegetables. Our grandparents and their grandparents knew well, but that modern life mostly left behind. Let's begin with one of the strangest of them all, salsify. Salsify is a root vegetable with long, pale, slender roots that don't look especially impressive at first glance. But once cooked, it develops a surprisingly rich flavor that many people once compared to oysters, which earned it the nickname oyster plant. In older gardens, salsify was valued because it could grow in cooler weather and store well. It was a practical food, but also a bit of a delicacy for people who appreciated old-fashioned flavors. Nutritionally, it provides fiber and minerals, and like many root vegetables, it was a dependable food for harder times. Today, most people walk right past it, never knowing that this humble root was once a treasured part of the kitchen garden. Another lost root from the old world is skirret. Skirret produces clusters of thin white roots with a sweet, earthy flavor. It was popular in Europe centuries ago and remained known in some older gardening traditions long after trendier vegetables took over. What made skirret special was that it was both useful and pleasant to eat. Roasted or boiled, it had a gentle sweetness, almost like a cross between carrot and parsnip. It's easy to see why it faded away in the industrial age. Skirret is not as uniform or convenient as modern supermarket vegetables. But in a home garden, where flavor and resilience matter more than perfect appearance, it makes a lot of sense. It's one of those vegetables that reminds us how much we traded away when food became more about shipping and shelf life than taste and tradition. Next is cardoon, a vegetable that looks almost like something from a fantasy garden. Cardoon is actually a close relative of the artichoke, but instead of eating the flower bud, people traditionally use the thick leaf stalks. These stalks were often blanched and cooked, giving them a flavor that many describe as somewhere between artichoke, celery, and something pleasantly bitter. This was a plant older generations appreciated not only for food, but for its dramatic beauty in the garden. It's tall, silvery, spiny, and unforgettable. But cardoon asks a little more from the cook. It often needs trimming and proper preparation, which may be one reason it slowly slipped out of common use. Still, it's a wonderful reminder that older vegetables were not always plain or humble. Some were bold, elegant, and a little wild. One of the most overlooked traditional foods in North America is the groundnut. This climbing native plant produces edible tubers underground, almost like little strings of earthy, protein-rich treasures. Indigenous peoples knew this plant well, and later settlers also relied on it. Groundnuts were valuable because they were nourishing and dependable. The tubers could be cooked much like potatoes, though their texture and taste are often described as nuttier and richer. This plant tells an important story. Many forgotten vegetables are not just curiosities. They are part of a deeper history of survival, adaptation, and regional knowledge. Groundnuts remind us that there was once a much wider relationship between people and the landscape around them. And finally, there's sea kale. Sea kale is one of those old vegetables that feels almost impossible by modern standards, because so few people talk about it now. It's a perennial plant with broad bluish leaves, and it was once cherished for its tender spring shoots and young leaves. When blanched, those shoots were treated almost like a luxury vegetable in some older kitchens. It had a mild, cabbage-like character, but with a delicacy that made it feel special. Sea kale was particularly valued because it came back year after year, making it useful for gardeners who liked reliable crops that didn't need to be started over each season. But like many traditional vegetables, it didn't fit neatly into the fast, uniform world of modern food production. It was better suited to patient gardeners and seasonal kitchens. That may be exactly why it feels so fascinating now. These strange vegetables may seem unusual now, but once, they were simply normal. They were the foods people knew by touch, by season, by family tradition. They were grown not because they looked perfect on a store shelf, but because they nourished people, survived local conditions, and carried stories from one generation to the next. Maybe that's part of what makes them so fascinating today. They remind us that the past was not poorer in food choices, but often richer in wisdom, diversity, and connection to the land. So next time you think about planting a garden or trying something new in the kitchen, you might look backward instead of forward. Hidden in the forgotten rows of old gardens are vegetables with history, resilience, and a little bit of mystery. And who knows? One of these strange old vegetables might turn out to be exactly what modern life has been missing. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, which forgotten vegetable would you be most curious to try?